Can you comment about the difficulty of the security from an Israel perspective when there is a large number of people that want to destroy it? How does Israel exist peacefully? This one-state solution.
I don't know, by not shooting, a journalist doing her job in the Jenin refugee camp,
But that
by
doesn't.
not killing a 14-year-old standing in his front yard. This whole talk about, security and security fence and the whole like propaganda of the Israeli Defense Forces and this whole iron wall ideology in which somehow they're always defending themselves, even though they're, Netanyahu and the Israeli government continue to talk about an existential threat, about Iran being an existential threat, even though the Israeli government is the only body that holds nuclear weapons in the region. They're the most sophisticated army in the region, and yet they continue hiding behind their fingers and talking about an existential threat and talking about how like they're insecure and so on and so forth. I came here on the bus, I live in a house where everybody in the world can easily Google it and get its address, and anybody can just walk into my house. And this is just, and I'm lucky and privileged as a Palestinian journalist. There are many Palestinian journalists who lose their lives. This is like, that's real insecurity, but we don't even have time to whine about it because there's real shit going on the ground that we're preoccupied with and reporting on all the time, that we don't even have the time to talk about how limited is our institutional backing, how limited is our, cyber security, how limited is our, even healthcare, like all of these things we don't even have time to complain about. But they're the real life things that formulate an insecure population that Israel certainly does not suffer from.
There's a tension here. It's true that the ideas of existential threats to a nation have been used to expand the military-industrial complex and to limit the rights of its people. So in the United States, after 9/11, Iraq and Afghanistan were invaded under some justification of there being terror in the world, these big ideas. And in the same way, yes, Israel, with the existential threat of Iran, is used to expand its military might over the region and control over the region. But it also has some truth to it in terms of the threat that Israel is facing, including from Iran. If Iran were to get a nuclear weapon, do you think there's a threat from that?
But who has the nukes?
Right now.
Yeah, but like we're talking about this like faraway monster that's like we're scared of, it's like fear mongering. What do you mean? Yani, who has the nukes?
Some of it is fear mongering, but some of it is true.
I don't think it's true. I think Israelis are obsessed with genocide because they have enacted genocide against us. Even when we talk about like a future, a liberation of Palestine, when we're talking about anything, they constantly jump to saying things like, oh, they want to throw us into the sea. They want to kill all Jews. What kind of hyperbolic bullshit is that? To say that if I am chanting and marching for my home not to be taken away from me by some kind of settler court, I am somehow demanding the murder of all Jews across the world. That is hyperbolic. And the fact that we coddle it is insane to me. So no, I don't think, as things stand right now, as the power balance stands right now, I don't think there's an existential threat to Israel. And also, let's redefine what existential threat. Do we think Israel, the Israeli regime, the Zionist regime, should continue to exist in its forms, subjugating people, enacting the crime of apartheid according to a bajillion human rights organizations? Do we think that it should continue keeping people in a cage? If that's what people are fighting to save, then that says a lot about the people who are feeling this existential threat, not me.
Do your beliefs represent the Palestinian people? Meaning, how many people are there that want Israel to be gone?
But what does it mean for Israel to be gone?
What it means is for people who think of Israel as an occupier, who stole land, that needs to go away, that this should be all Palestine.
Yeah, but is that a bad thing for these borders to be like for the occupation to end, for these for the land to be given back? Is that a bad thing?
Well, there's different definitions of occupation. There's people in their homes now, right?
But is it their home? I'm not talking about like some random home. But there are many Israelis who drink their coffee every morning from living rooms that are not theirs.
That are not theirs, that were taken just a few decades ago.
Yeah. Where like the owners, the rightful owners of these homes are still lingering in refugee camps, are still dreaming of return.
There are homes on the land of Israel that you wouldn't classify as stolen.
I mean, there is like if it wasn't stolen, like if it was built, but is the land stolen, right? But all of this again, I try not to like fall into this because it just like it feels so abstract and far away, and this is not how liberation is going to look like whatsoever. And I'm not fixated on ethnic cleansing. I'm not obsessed with ethnic cleansing. I'm obsessed with ending the ethnic cleansing campaign that has been visited upon me and my family and my community for 7+ decades. That's what I'm obsessed with. All of this other stuff about what happens to the settlers and like we want to kill all Jews and all of this, I think it's bullshit and I think it's ridiculous. And I think, fixating on it is like distracting from the focal point. There needs to be an end to all of the injustices, to all of the atrocities. A little boy from Jerusalem should be able to go jog around the city without fearing getting shot. That's like the simplest thing we're asking for here. And we want our land back. And those things do not mean actually at all the ethnic cleansing of another people.
Well, but that we should be precise here. So a little boy being able to run around Jerusalem, that's a great vision, not just safely, but without racism, without hate. That's a beautiful vision, yes. But people in West Jerusalem, people in Tel Aviv that have homes, should they stay there? Do they have the right to stay there?
That's like maybe number 99 on my priorities list. I'm concerned with the refugees. I'm concerned with the teenagers in the prisons. I am concerned with my house. I'm concerned with my family's house in Haifa. I'm concerned. There's a lot for me to do before I can even tend to the needs of my occupier. That is the least of my concerns.
So you want the low-hanging fruit, the obvious injustices to end.
Yeah.
But still, the long-term vision of existential survival of Israel, which is the concern of its government, is concern of its people. Do you see a future where Israelis have a home in the region?
Sure, just not in my front yard.
Where's the front yard and where's the backyard?
There are literally Jewish settlers.
Yes.
One of which from Long Island in my literal front yard.
Yes.
And this is the case in hundreds, if not thousands, of Palestinian homes. No one is saying Jewish people shouldn't exist or they shouldn't have a state of their own if they. I mean, I think all religious based states are like a bad idea. All nation states are a bad idea. But whatever, if that's what they want to do, that's what they want to do. But that doesn't mean that they are allowed or have a right to create and implement a system of Jewish supremacy at my expense. That's not a crazy thing to say. That is not a controversial thing to say. You can have your state, just don't kill anyone. Thank you, have a good day. That's not a crazy thought to have.
And seek and establish asymmetry of power in the courts, which is the current source of injustice.
I mean, that's when it comes to like forced expulsions in our home, but there's a myriad of other ways.
Through the military?
The military, I mean, the police. If you look at like how many times, I should have brought the data with me, but if you look at how little times the Israeli military or police has investigated its own people or indicted its own people. I mean, just recently, the killer um, who has been hailed a hero by some of Israeli society, who killed Iyad al-Hallaq, a Palestinian man who is autistic, who lives inside the occupied old city, where again Israeli military has no business being there or jurisdiction whatsoever. He was shot and killed by an Israeli soldier who was trigger happy because they have this like siege mentality where like any moving object is going to kill them. And he was shot and killed. And despite it being in broad daylight, despite it being well documented, despite the victim being disabled, despite all of this, he was acquitted by the Israeli court. The military, the courts, the government, they all work together, which is why it's so ironic to me that there are hundreds of thousands of people marching on the streets of Tel Aviv, trying to save the progressive beacon that is the Israeli Supreme Court, when you find its fingerprints all over the injustices perpetuated against Palestinians, be it legalizing and upholding the withholding of slain Palestinian bodies who were killed by the Israeli military to be used as bargaining chips by the Israeli militaries, be it making decisions to dispossess entire villages like el-Hiran, be it never once granting release to any Palestinian who was held in administrative detention without charge or trial, be it upholding the legality of the family reunification law that does not allow Palestinian couples who hold different legal statuses of reuniting and living together as families. I mean, those are just some of the few things I can think of about the Israeli Supreme Court. So they're like the real tension that exists is the lack of diversity on the Israeli political spectrum that makes the vision for a future so limited, because those on what seems to be like the far left are defending an extremely conservative institution that is a Supreme Court that they regard as progressive, when in fact it is the opposite of such. So what do we do? How can we talk? How can we have peace with people who are chanting to save the very body that is displacing us? It's ridiculous.